Welcome to the throne, where the cardboard shines. Stories in the stats, legends frozen in time. Slow it down with Royal Ripzz, the podcast for the cards you love.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to episode 9 of the Royal Ripzz Room presented by Giblet King Sports. This is part 2 of the 3-part season finale, baby. Let's get it, let's go. Thank you for enjoying the show. Thank you all for the support. Let's get into it. Grab your popcorn. Let's get into part 2 of what built Giblet King Sports and Randy Ripzz. So in last week's episode, we ended off with my dad passing away, or the guy who raised me passing away, my brother's dad passing away, and, kind of hinting at, what was to come next. What was coming next for my life that really altered the way I look at things, the way I altered, just the way I go about life in general, till this day, So let's get into that. Before I do get into that, I want to say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to every single person watching this, listening to this. Thank you all for the support again. And let's get into this, this next part. This next part is really crazy. So let's get into it, sit back, let's go. So I'll pick up where I left off last week. My brother's dad passed away. The guy who raised me passed away. One of the more tragic things that, ever happened in my life. It altered my life, my brother's life, and it really altered my, my mom's life. Shortly after my dad passed away, I'd probably say probably a few weeks, we kind of already knew, after the funerals and all that, we kind of already knew that we weren't going to stay in, Florida, and we were going to move. We just didn't know where. In my mind growing up, I thought we were going to go, come back to Texas, Baytown, Texas. That's where all our family was. We ended up moving with a family friend in Tennessee. Up to this point, I can already tell that things were already kind of changing. My mom, the way she was acting, the way she was talking. So we move in with a family friend. Her name is Darla. I love her to death. And we move in with her on their ranch. First night there, my mom ends up doing, having sex with a guy, random dude. And, to me, that really altered me, and it pissed me off because I thought, damn, our guy just passed away not even a month ago, and you kind of already moved on. And then right after that, really the next day, my mom left us there. So my mom went back to, Florida to pack our things and all that. And she left us in a house on the ranch, just me, my brother David, and my brother Gordy, left us all on this ranch at this house alone. And, our family friend was on a different house on the ranch, and, she got us up and took us to school. But really, for 2 months, me and my brothers were in that house alone, figuring out what we were going to eat. We try to cook stuff, burn stuff, and really just were fending for ourselves for 2 months straight in a house in Tennessee by ourselves. Our dad just passed away. And ultimately, they're kind of like, looking back at how it's crazy that our mom left us to fend for herself. And really, I was only 11 years old. My brother was 9 years old. Our youngest brother was like 6 or 7. So it's just from that point on, I knew that I had that really no one was ever coming to save me. No one was coming to save our brothers. After the first week, I kind of realized that no one was coming to save us. And till this day, I'll say the same thing. We are all we got. We're the only family we got left. And I made sure that I was going to take care of my brothers no matter what. Made sure they ate, whether if it was ramen noodles or it was some sort of cracker spread type thing where I put a bunch of random stuff in a bag and I made that. So just from that point on, that really altered the way I looked at things and the way I take care of my family now. You know what I mean? So fast forward, my mom finally comes back. She takes us. She tells us that we're moving back to Baytown with my grandma, my Nana, which excited for her, one of my favorite people of all time. So we moved back, and I can just start seeing some, kind of different things in my mom. She's starting to get a little skinnier. She's kind of fidgeting her fingers a lot. And I was like, in my mind, I've always been like an investigator, nosy type person. So in my mind, every time she went to the restroom, I would hear her like doing, sniffles, right? So one day she went to the restroom and I looked under the door because my grandma had a pretty like sizable gap to where you can see what's going on in the restroom if you're being nosy. And I saw her snorting something off the counter. Now at the time, didn't know that it was, cocaine. Didn't know it was like that type of drug, but I knew it was a drug. I just didn't know, to the extent. So I tattletaled immediately. Went to my Nana, tattletaled, and, my Nana made sure that we felt good, we felt comfortable. She was my best friend, 1,000%. But I knew my mom, her life was being altered. She was changing the way she was. She was, starting to be really mean to us, cussing at us, hitting us, throwing stuff at us. She just wasn't the same mom that I knew 3 months prior to, to where we were today. So we're living in the same, trailer park that my Nana was living in. And I was over there almost every single day. If I wasn't in school, I was over at my Nana's house and I was eating chocolate pudding and playing with her, eating her dog and just, loving on her, and my favorite person of all time. And, so one day we're over there, we're eating pizza, this and that, and we're leaving my Nana's house. And she says, "Well, you're not going to say I love you?" And I said, "Well, why am I going to say I love you? I'm going to see you tomorrow." Little did I know that the very next day she got in she was going to get into a horrible motorcycle accident, and she ended up passing away. Just another thing that kind of added not only to me, this sadness to me, but also to my mom. Just more stuff that was just being added to her, that she lost her husband and then she loses her mom not even, 6 months later. So a lot of things just changed on my mom, like her attitude, the way she looked at things. She never wanted to get a job. We were living house to house, not even house, trailer park to trailer park, apartment to apartment. There were times where we were really, you know, fending for ourselves as kids. We were sharing 5 pack of noodles for 30 straight days. There were days where we didn't have water, where, there was months at a time where we didn't have lights, to where we were taking cold showers, taking cold baths. We were dirty as hell, holes in our shirt, holes in our shoes, our clothes stinked. We were the kids that had lice. We were the kids that people said, "Oh, they kind of stink." That's what we were. My mom just really, in my opinion, she gave up. She gave up, and to me, just didn't want to be a mom anymore, right? So she started doing drugs very heavily. I mean, just really heavily. And then, she met a guy named Lee, nice guy. And, you know, things started feeling okay again. Things started feeling really okay. And then all of us, one day they let me know, my mom, put me aside, said, "Hey, actually, the guy that you thought was your dad that passed away, months ago, he's actually not your dad. And your real dad is getting out of jail soon. His name's George. And I would love for you to meet him, and I'm going to live in the house." And of course, as a little kid who thought he lost his dad, I was super excited. I was like, okay, I have a dad again. I have somebody that I can talk to about, sports, and just have a dad. I felt great again. So I meet him. Well, first I started writing him. We write about things. He tells me his favorite team is the Miami Dolphins. So I'm super excited, right? I meet this guy. We go to get him from the jail. We pick him up when he gets released, and he comes live with us. And the first few days was great. He was acting like a real dad. We were bonding. We were getting to know each other. I was missing a few days of school to get to know him, and I felt great that I had a dad again. And then probably I would say a week after he moved in, I started noticing he was doing drugs. He was taking my extra money, my brother's extra money. He was taking my 2 little brothers to the side of the road, saying that they were hurricane victims, to get, money on the side of the road, scamming. And then one day he did some things to me. I won't say exactly what was done. But yeah, we were alone, and he ended up doing some things to me that really altered my mindset and really changed me, really put me in a dark, dark place, to where honestly I did not want to live anymore as a young kid. And from that point on, I didn't speak to him again. He ended up, eventually moving out. I told my mom exactly what happened, by the way. I told her everything, and she didn't care. Kept the man, kept doing drugs with him, stuff like that. And that's where my hatred for my mom really started, like really, really started. So that goes along. He finally moves out, and about a month after he moves out, he ends up murdering somebody. He murders somebody. I see it on the news. He tries to get in touch with me, and I told him, I said, "I'll be honest, I hate you, and I don't ever want to talk to you again." He ended up killing himself a month later. So just, more things that are just stacking, stacking, and stacking, and stacking, that are not just adding to my depression, but definitely altering the way my mom's thinking. She started using drugs heavier and heavier and heavier. And then fast forward to a few months later, we're at my Meemaw's house, and she meets this guy across the street named James. James, his kids, I've known them all our lives, growing up when we were babies. I've known them because they lived across from our grandma. Their grandma and my grandma lived across from each other, so we grew up together. and just coincidental, him and my mom just started dating. So that brought a lot of joy to our life. Obviously, we had more brothers, step brothers now, and especially with guys that or dudes that we known for our entire life. But man, just I didn't know that he also was using meth, and they were doing meth together a lot. So somebody reported that they were doing meth, and CPS came. CPS came, took me, my brothers away, and we were no longer allowed to live with my mom. And it just, it's just, at that point, it's just like every time I feel like we got a break, every time that I thought maybe my mom was getting better, my mom was, treating us right, something would happen that would just boom me down, man. And I'm pretty sure my brothers feel the exact same way. They were way closer to my mom than I was. I was living with my uncle for a majority, big part of my life. And, when we first moved back to Texas. So, yeah, it was rough. Every little time that we thought that it was getting better, it got, something happened that made it a whole lot worse. Living in foster care for a little bit, being at CPS, again, living off like 5 packs of noodles for 30 days. That was our life. We were eating spaghetti damn near every single day. We didn't have Christmas. We didn't have Thanksgiving. I didn't have a Christmas again, like a real Christmas, until I met my wife. So it's just those little things turn into bigger things that really altered the way that I really look at life now. And I don't take anything for granted. Now I want to live a little bougie. Now I want to live a little, happier, and I want more. I want to give my son, my wife, everything I possibly can. So yeah, it's just a lot of things led to me just going to a very, very dark place, to where a lot of times, I had a ton of suicidal thoughts. I did not want to be here anymore. I didn't believe in God. I didn't do none of that. And, it didn't really, nothing really changed for me, mentally wise. Right now I'm kind of shaking thinking about it. Mentally wise, until I moved to San Antonio, until I met, some of the people that are still in my life today, a decade later, that are still in my life, until I met my wife, a decade later, who's still in my life, who really, really and truly, you know, took, me, changed who I am. And I'm going to get into that on the third part of this 3-part series and the season finale next week. But yeah, a lot of things in this episode are things that really altered me from being abused mentally, physically, emotionally, from, being that broke kid that didn't have anything, that was going to school, being picked on and bullied, to my mom hitting us, and watch my mom just deteriorate as a person because of the amount of meth and cocaine and drugs she was on, and just all the lies. The lies are just so much. She lied about everything. She lied about, just everything. She didn't really tell the truth on anything, to be honest with you. But yeah, man. And again, I'm not making this for anybody to say, oh, I feel bad. And I don't want to hear that. I'm just here really making this 3-part series to let every single person know that no matter what situation you're in, you can always get out of it. You are the person that can do it, right? I've gotten out of it. I am building a brand. I'm building a business. I'm trying to build a freaking empire to give my son, my wife, my family, everything I never had. And to me, the hustle tip of the week is this: don't let anybody manipulate you, whether it's your parent, your best friend, your siblings, wife, don't let manipulation change who you are. Do not let that ever sit in and change the person you are. Continue to be you. Continue that if you have big dreams, you go achieve them. You finish those goals. You check mark every single thing that you accomplish, and you get it right. Because in 2026, we are going to build off of who you are. So take everything I just told you, take all that and build it into motivation, just like I did. If you're in a similar situation, or you're in a situation, that's smaller than this, but it's huge in your eyes, take that as motivation to build you. Don't let your past, don't let anybody who has ever tried to manipulate you change your mind on who you are. Stay true to you. Stay freaking dogging, and trust me, you got this. I believe in you. You got it. I care about you. I love you. So again, thank y'all so much for watching episode 9, part 2 of the season finale. We're going to get home. We're going to hit it home next week on part 3 on the New Year's Eve week, baby. Let's get it. Let's go. Stay alive, stay believing, and keep rapping.
Mao, ça tue, ça blesse, ça flingue. Aïe, aïe, aïe.